Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. No sponsors, no Brian, no Terry, no Zach. Just me, myself, and I, Joe Kuzma, here to talk about whether or not Le'Veon Bell can save the Steelers season. Wait, hold on. Loaded two-part question here. Save the season? How are people thinking the season's already lost? Oh, they're 1-2-1, Joe. They lost 2 games. Well, guess what? Guess who else has lost 2 games so far this season? The beloved New England Patriots. I say that because I swear some Steelers fans, they would much rather be New England Patriots fans. They're always pointing to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Yeah, okay, they have 5 rings. Over how many seasons? Pretty successful. Doesn't happen very often, right? How many people? Lombardi, Packers, right? Okay. Chuck Noll and our Steelers, right? And then you have the years with the San Francisco 49ers and Bill Walsh. Doesn't happen very often. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this stuff is rare, and yet you have a team who's rare and supposed to be a dynasty and already has a slow start. Let's talk about, well, Denver Broncos probably aren't going to excite you. The Chargers probably aren't going to excite you. The Cowboys. How about the defending Super Bowl champions? You know, the guys the Patriots lost to in the big game last year, the Philadelphia Eagles, 2-2 as well. Yeah, I get it. The Steelers have a tie. They don't have that extra win that mucks some things up on either side of the equation, but still, it's 2 losses. Eagles and Patriots, both teams in the Super Bowl. How about another Super Bowl favorite? Minnesota Vikings, same exact record, 1-2-1. And guess what? They got trounced by the Buffalo Bills. You know, when you're looking at the Steelers' schedule, I was talking about this with Brian on the last episode, and I'm sure Terry will have some WTF stuff coming shortly as well. But I got my own reasons for saying WTF, because everyone thinks Le'Veon Bell is just going to be this huge savior of the season. I get just perturbed hearing the words save the season. 1 week at a time, folks. There's 16 regular season games. They've played 4 of them. 4 of them. Could be in worse shape. It's better than being 0-3 or 1-3. Who's all 1-3? The Lions, the Falcons, who are coming to town this week. I mean, the 49ers, remember? Now they lost Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, but that was supposed to be completely turned around. I think one of the few teams that's really doing what is expected of them, maybe, the Rams, 4-0. They're on fire. Good for them. Kansas City Chiefs, yeah. You know who else has 2 losses? Seattle Seahawks. I wonder if their fan base is panicking. I don't know. I'm not up in the Pacific Northwest to figure that out. It's just one of these things where I'm like, pump the brakes on all this. We talked about this. This even comes from that Bill Belichick that everyone loves to cite. And he had said, and I picked this quote up like a year or 2 ago, that September is an extension of the preseason. Why? Because nobody plays in the preseason. It's pretty bad, too, when you got guys who don't even show up for training camp, or, as is the case, you got guys that are banged up either during training camp or coming out of training camp. Antonio Brown, think that might be a little bit of a reason to a slow start? Oh, yeah, of course, he's getting double and triple teamed. You get things that are out of sync. Remember, Ben said maybe this gunslinger doesn't have it anymore. That was week 5 of last season after a bad loss. Now, of course, they were 3-2, but there wasn't any less panic after an overtime loss to Chicago Bears. You take a look at this Steelers schedule, I think it's still funny. I'm looking at all these teams that are like 1-3 as well. Could be worse. 1-win teams, same thing as the Steelers, I'm sure. See, this is the glass half empty, glass half full of having a tie on your record. And it disgusts me. It does disgust me. But Cleveland Browns, I mean, are you kidding me? Cleveland Browns have gone to OT twice now and lost both of them. If they had a field goal kicker, a kicker that could have made a couple extra points and a field goal, they would have beaten the New Orleans Saints. They're currently in the lead of their division, 3-1. Who did the Browns play week 3? Oh, yeah, they had a victory. Thursday night game against the Jets, the top quarterbacks in the draft, duking it out. Maybe an improved team. You look at Kansas City, I already said they're 4-0. They squeaked out a win on Monday night against the Denver Broncos. Play clock went to 0, and that should have been it. But you know what? Luck fell on their side. They made the Steelers look silly in the home opener, but the Steelers still put up a lot of points. It wasn't like they just laid down for them. Not like the last 2 second halves against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A victory, mind you. Remember Fitzmagic? That's fizzled out already. And then you got whatever, the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, geez, everyone just panicking over defense. It's just, we've talked about it. When you have a 22-second drive, 22 seconds elapsed off the game clock. That was one of the drives with the Steelers. 47 yards of offense in the second half. I get sick of trying to tell people, maybe you should be looking at something other than the defense. Sure, maybe they could try and get off the field, but you try and be out there for 22 minutes roughly in the second half. How about you just got off the field, held that team to a field goal or whatever it may have even been a punt. I don't have the possession chart in front of me. And 22 seconds, what's that maybe in real time? Because I'm imagining it was pass, incomplete. Maybe a run and a pass and 2 passes, something like that. 2 minutes of elapsed time, 40-second play clock, minute and a half, and then the punt. I don't even think that's enough time. You don't even have enough time to use the bathroom. I mean, seriously, you run down into the locker room, you don't even realize that your side of the ball is back out on the field. Now, the guys aren't doing that probably in the middle of the game. As we know, they use the blue medical tent sometimes for these reasons. Get a quick one in. But you get the point. If you would have went to try and grab some nachos, you would have completely missed the Steelers' possessions on Sunday night. Now, that doesn't really help me in saying that the season is lost, like a lot of people want to say. But I'm not completely panicking. There's flashes. There's times when teams execute poorly. I just talked about the Vikings losing to the Bills. The Bills, by and large, should be the worst team in the NFL. Detroit Lions beat the New England Patriots. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I know. The New England Patriots just whooped on the Miami Dolphins. It's the Miami Dolphins, and they're 3-1. Things are upside down right now. The Tennessee Titans are leading the AFC South over Jacksonville and the Houston Texans. Are you kidding me? There's a lot of football to be played just yet. You want to throw in the towel? Remember the year, the bus, and going to Detroit for the Super Bowl? Wild card. Didn't even think you're going to get in the playoffs. You think guys are throwing in the towel just yet? It's the beginning of October. But yet, one guy, we talk about teams, yet there's one guy that everyone seems to think is just going to turn this whole thing around. Well, let me start by saying this. Le'Veon Bell is a special talent, and he's someone that more than likely, I mean, it's Killer B thing, right? Help the team. No doubt about it. Be better if he's out there. If he immediately comes out, now mind you, it's still 2 weeks away. Everyone's still in this panic mode. You still got to get through, because he's like, I'm still not going to help this team and win. I'm the best running back in the NFL, even though I haven't played a snap, not one down of football in 2018. I'm the best. I deserve to be paid like the best, even though I'm not playing, even though I'm giving away like $860,000 for every week that I decide to sit at home. I want more money, but I don't want that money. No. I could afford to not have more money, but I want more money. I'll see it when I believe it, but let's just assume that he comes during the bye week. And he comes, and he's good. Football shape. Let's hope he doesn't worry about snap counts. God, James Conner, 9 carries Sunday night. Is that what we want? Maybe Le'Veon Bell, maybe that's what made his decision is Monday morning, aside from getting back to being relevant because people stopped talking. 9 carries. Yeah, there we go. That's going to save wear and tear on his body. Do you really expect Bell to have a better night than James Conner did the other night with 9 carries? He sure didn't last year. The yards per carry were pretty miserable right out the gate. In fact, 9 for 19 for James Conner. A lot of people ragging on the fact that, he had a big week, then he had a little week, then he had a big week, and then, somewhat of a medium week, and then another big week. And it's just like, hey, this doesn't look too much different than what the Steelers have been doing the last few years. If you recall, last season, it was all about Le'Veon Bell being rusty. Why? Because he wasn't at training camp. He reported like days before the first game, and the Steelers put him out there. And guess what he did? 10 carries for 32 yards. Little bit better. I give the Baltimore Ravens a little more credit maybe on the run D Sunday night than the Cleveland Browns team that went 0-16 last year. 3.2 yards per carry. Oh, he caught some passes. Get paid like a wide receiver too. He caught half of them. Half of 6 is 3 for 15 yards. Little dump offs. Maybe you get a first down because then you know what? That would help this team right now. Maybe he does save the season. God, I hate saying that word. Please stop saying that. Please stop saying to pay the man too. They try to pay the man. Those checks get bounced because they never even get mailed. It's return to sender because he's not there and he hasn't signed anything. You can't trade him until he signs something. Please. Oh, I got another pet peeve. Oh, my goodness. Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas' situation is completely different. Earl Thomas holding out, wanted an extension, wanted a longer contract. But he still showed up. He plays. Oh, he gets hurt. Season done. Guess what? You got to play football to get paid for football, right? I can't just all of a sudden say I'm a figure skater. I'm the greatest figure skater in the world. Pay me. Well, Joe, we need to see you out there on the ice. No. I got to preserve my body, man. I got to preserve my body maybe for next year for that big figure skating contract. So what happened with Earl Thomas is unfortunate. And there's an example of teams. I mean, he had a 4-year, $40 million contract. He's set to be a free agent next year. He wanted an extension. This sounds too familiar up in Seattle. I talked about the Pacific Northwest, but I hear a few rumblings coming from that direction, right? Marshawn Lynch, you remember him holding out? I do. Cam Chancellor, yeah. That's like the thing to do when you're in Seattle. If you're too much of a squeaky wheel, Michael Bennett, they just trade you or let you go. Richard Sherman. Legion of Boom, blown up pretty much. We don't know what Seattle's going to look like. But, I mean, they were in a couple of Super Bowls. They had, shut down type defense. We talked about on the last episode how many teams scored 30 or more just in week 4. You've got passing yards, quarterbacks, and touchdowns like you've never seen in any NFL season to start through 4 weeks. No one's playing defense yet. People want to cry about the defense. And then they want to say that Le'Veon Bell is going to fix it. Well, I don't know. Is he going to play linebacker? He's sitting there making a comment about Earl Thomas. That's why I'm not out there. Well, guess what? When you're not out there, if you're as good as you say you are, you're the best running back in the league, and you can put up some stats that are a little better than the rusty start, you're ready for football, buddy. Not 10 for 32, 27 for 87 against the Vikings. Oh, 87 yards. Yeah, 3.22 a carry. No rushing touchdowns through those first 2 weeks. He caught 4 passes against the Vikings in the home opener back in 2017 for 4 yards total. 4 yards total, 1 yard per average. He did get, no, he did not have a receiving touchdown. Wide receiver 2 money, though, 2 weeks. I don't know. I don't necessarily like to pay wide receivers for catching 7 balls for 19 yards through 2 weeks. I think that would cause a headache. Remember Martavis Bryant and how he was a ghost? Take away the rushing thing. Let's just call Le'Veon Bell the receiver. He wants to be paid like a receiver. Doesn't look like he should be. Pay the man, right? Let's give him a franchise tag. Give him a contract. Was it $33 million through 2 years? Oh, because it's not guaranteed. He's not sure he's not going to blow out his knee again. Steelers don't want to take that risk either, trust me. The Steelers don't do this with anything, but they pay guys. They paid Lamar Woodley. Lamar Woodley was still on the books for years after he was gone. Got the same thing going on when Cortez Allen, just totally lost his head and couldn't play. He was on that cap hit too. Maybe they're not on the team. Maybe they're not in the NFL. The Steelers still hold up their end of the bargain. They're like, if you watch Game of Thrones, they're the Lannisters. They pay their debts. Pay the man, right? Chicago Bears game last season. Le'Veon Bell, 15 carries, 61 yards. He had a touchdown. 6 passes for 37. A little better, inching towards 100 all-purpose yards. Got to be a weapon, all-purpose. But you see a trend here, 32, 87, 61. Actually, he went over 4 yards average against the Bears, 407. A little bit better, a little bit of an improvement. They play the Ravens. They walloped the Ravens last year. He had 35 carries. Is he going to do that again? They play the Ravens not too long from now. All these AFC North games pan themselves out pretty much. You go through October and early November, and it's done. This division's going to be figured out. They get the Cleveland Browns again October 28th. They get the Ravens, I believe, the week after. Baltimore. They beat Baltimore. 35 carries, 144 yards, 4.1 average, 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions, 42 yards. That sounds like a guy I want to pay. But it took 4 weeks to get there. The week after? And this is where I have my problems with people ragging on James Conner and saying they need Bell to save the season right now. You remember the Jacksonville Jaguars game? Ben Picklisburger, Pick Sixburger. I hate saying that. It hurts me to even make fun of guys like that because I could sympathize. I could put myself in his shoes. I'd probably throw a pick six every time I attempt a pass in the NFL, let alone a guy that's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I apologize, Big Ben. They lose 30-9, though. Poor offensive effort. This is when he said the gunslinger doesn't have it anymore. Bell carries the ball 15 times. Do you see a pattern here? This guy doesn't get 20-some touches. The Steelers are pretty much squadoo. 15 attempts, 47 yards. I mean, that's all the Steelers had in the second half of the Sunday night game. 47 yards. Both miserable. 3.13. It was the lowest average yards per carry to date in that 2017 season. He didn't get anywhere on the ground. He caught 10 passes for 46 yards, 4.6 for each catch. It was just a lot of little dump-off stuff. I mean, it's great. You caught 10 balls, but there's nobody covering you like a wide receiver, not like Antonio Brown, who's struggling so far to start the season. So, can Bell save this team? Well, I go back. I mean, I looked at James Conner's stuff. I look at some other things, some other factors. Kind of mentioned this before. I mean, heading into week 4, Conner was in the top 5 rushing. Started off big, 31 carries, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caught 5 passes for 57. Comes back against Kansas City. Steelers have not focused on running the football the last 3 weeks. 8 carries, 17 yards against the Chiefs. Why? The game script. Their whole plans, throw them in a dumpster, put some lighter fluid on it, throw the match. Dumpster fire. Says burn them up because you got down 21-0 against the Chiefs. How are you supposed to compete? You're not going to be able to run the football when you dig yourself a hole. They're down 7-0 immediately against Tampa. Carries the ball 15 times, 61 yards. A lot of that second half, grinding out the game. 4-yard average. 4.35 against Cleveland, 407 against Tampa. Cleveland should have been a win. Terrible conditions. Boswell misses that field goal. You got to take the good with the bad. But Conner, man, 5 catches, 48 yards against the Chiefs. 5 catches, 34 yards against the Bucks. Caught 3 of 7, 25 yards. That was Ben, not necessarily his sharpest. 9 carries, 19 yards, as mentioned, against the Ravens. You think if Le'Veon Bell has 9 carries after what I just said, will he do a little better than the 2.11 yards per carry that Conner had? Better or worse? I think flip a coin. I don't think it's going to be much better. Maybe, maybe not. Think he does much better than 3 receptions for 25 yards? Tough to say. Tough to say. You go and you look at some of the success of Le'Veon Bell. Last year, he only ran for over 100 yards in 4 games. Now, he played 15. He did not play the season finale against the Browns. That was one of the games where everyone sat. I think Bell had a pretty big game against the Jaguars in the postseason loss. He certainly had big postseason games when he finally got to play in the postseason the year before against the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Then he got hurt against the Patriots and just nothing was working. They had, D'Angelo Williams. Didn't do much there. D'Angelo Williams was banged up too. He was getting up there in age, but he had a great start to his year. Don't forget that. Bell suspended. Another thing that's really worrisome when you're going to take the risk on a big long-term contract and a guy wants all this guaranteed money, which, by the way, these contracts with Gurley and David Johnson, this stuff all happened after the whole franchise tag fiasco. Everyone says the Steelers front office flopped on this. That's BS. They offered him a lot of money. They're actually mortgaging quite a bit of their future depending on what players they were thinking they could let go and not re-sign. I'm sure some of them people wouldn't necessarily have too big a problem with right now, even though I think Bud Dupree's having a pretty solid start to his season so far. Had a pretty good game against the Ravens. TJ Watt has been struggling since the first game, right? But, hey, I think these guys bring it. They both have the talent. But you get into situations where, I don't know, you pay Bell for 4 years. You got to start thinking about what do you do with some of these guys like a Dupree or a Watt. They just re-signed Vince Williams. We don't know Ryan Shazier's future. I'm going to throw that up in the air as probably never playing football again, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. But you see what I'm getting at. What if one of these guys, I don't know, you're going to let Joe Hayden go because he's one of the higher paid guys, but he's the best corner that you have. You start making those type of decisions. What can you do on the offensive line? Do you let like a Marcus Gilbert walk or Ramon Foster walk? These aren't easy decisions. Juju Smith-Schuster will have a contract coming up within that time frame of what Bell was going to do for 4-5 years and all that boatload of money. Maybe Ben's retired by then and you free up some cap space because you have one of these guys under a rookie contract like Josh Dobbs or Mason Rudolph trying to take over for him. That's a possibility, but you got to be thinking like the Steelers are thinking there. I think that was more than fair. All Bell's looking at is that he wants to get paid more than Antonio Brown for some reason. I don't know. Playmaker, yes, but when you look at some of this stuff, I was telling you about Connor already. Connor has very little, like, as far as a track record that you could say, oh, well, he's going to do that consistently and he could replace Bell. Totally cool with that. That's sensible. That's looking at things logically. D'Angelo Williams, on the other hand, with pretty much the same offensive line, definitely the same offensive line coach who should be the guy getting $14.5 million this year, Mike Munchak. Remember when D'Angelo Williams was called 1A to Bell's 1 or 1A and 1B? Remember these guys were talking about that? And you had Bell out for the 2015, 2016 seasons. Williams was putting up huge numbers. 127-yard rushing game. They lost to the Patriots. That was that opener in 2016. 3 touchdowns against the 49ers at home. Do we remember that? AFC Player of the Week by far. By and large. It's just very tough for me to look at some of this and think that it's all on Le'Veon Bell. And that's the reason why you got guys like Ramon Foster comes out on his show yesterday. And they ask him some questions, and it's not like it's just kumbaya, they're going to bring him back in. You also got to remember somebody's like, oh, well, Ramon, you just go out there and block. Well, it's kind of hard to just go out there and block for a guy that you know is making a Google of more money than you are, and some of that success is predicated on your success. and you doing your job correctly. Now, another thing you got to remember, too, is Ramon's just not any guy with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been around for a very long time. Undrafted player who fought his way into a starting position, wasn't drafted, wasn't given a silver spoon, wasn't given the keys of the car in a starting position. Hasn't been in trouble, relatively healthy, player rep with the league, with the union. Yeah. Think he has to deal with 1 or 2 or 5 headaches? Definitely. D'Angelo Williams, though, man, behind these same guys. He put up some numbers. You remember this? I mean, Bell got hurt. You had a season where D'Angelo Williams, and I had the stats here, and it's great because I love bringing up websites that just, let's take you into pop-up hell and then take you off the website. I was just looking at it, and then I had the brain fart. 11 touchdowns by D'Angelo Williams. Whatever year that was, because I'm dealing with pop-ups. 2015, 907 yards. That was 10 starts. And then he was receiving like he had never received in his career before. 40 catches, 367 yards. He follows that up the following season with 343 yards, 4 touchdowns. He only had the 4 starts. I think the last one, once again, like that Cleveland game, I want to say. He had some big games. Then he had an absolutely miserable, just lousy, pathetic, weak. I'm sorry, D'Angelo, I really love you too, but I know you know this. If you, by some chance, hook or crook, this gets back to you, this really has nothing to do with you, and more or less, why the heck didn't the Steelers give you the football against the Philadelphia Eagles? You remember that Week 3 game where they went to Philly and laid the egg? 8 carries for 21 yards. That sounds very James Conner-like. 2.63 yards per carry. Caught 4 passes for 23 yards. The week before, he caught 4 passes for 38 and then 6 for 28. This all sounds very familiar. 26 for 143 against the Washington Redskins, 2016. I may have said the Patriots. I may have had that wrong. I may have had that mixed up with 2015. Sorry. And then 32 carries against the Bengals for 94. Yeah, a little under 3 yards per carry, but that was kind of an ugly game, if I recall, too, weather-wise. And the Steelers really grinded out some smash-mouth football. But 26 and 32 attempts and both victories. 8 carries and a loss. Got away from it. Defense wasn't playing good. Whole team wasn't playing good. So I think you might see what I'm getting at here. Is it so much the system, or is it Le'Veon Bell? I don't know. We got to make that determination. I don't know how you make it without having Bell out there. But you see that Connor and D-Will both had a lot of success that suggests when the Steelers decide to not play backyard football, and I don't want to say balanced game plan. I'll give Zach Meckler some credit for this because I don't necessarily talk balanced game plan, but he's the one who put this thought in my head because of someone else spouting off. We did talk about the 5-to-1 pass-to-run ratio. You ain't got to be 50-50, but sure as heck helps that you at least establish some possession so you don't have a 22-second drive or possession. Excuse me. Losing my voice. I'm losing my mind over this stuff because people think Bell's going to come right in here and just immediately correct that. This is where I'm going to leave this off. Okay? If Le'Veon Bell... I got one more for you. Remember the wild card game where they didn't have D'Angelo Williams? Popped in my head. Now, of course, Fitz Toussaint fumbles against the Broncos, and that ends the season in the divisional game. But Jordan Todman and Fitzgerald Toussaint ran 28 times for 123 yards on the Cincinnati Bengals in that wild card game. Jordan Todman and Fitzgerald Toussaint. Go look up and see where they're at right now. Okay? Pretty crazy stuff. Pretty crazy stuff. But I'm going to leave you with this. If Le'Veon Bell is the savior to do a Steelers season, let's just say that their season needs saving. And he comes in and he instantly corrects all of the woes, everything that was bad, and the Steelers start winning. Let's say they have a rocky 2 weeks before this, before his return. the chosen one, walking through the gates, saves the Steelers, huge games, kept himself in incredible shape, gets a bye week and extra practice in. That's great. Why the heck weren't you here for 6 other games where you could have helped the team and all you did was take money out of your own pocket and be selfish? Because that's really what it is. When you said no to whatever terms the Steelers offered you, and then you say no to the franchise tag and you want to reset the market, but you're being paid the highest of any running back by either avenue or path that you take, you're hurting the team, bro. I mean, it's just plain and simple. If you come in and you're that good from the get-go, week 8, and the Steelers just look like lightning, the killer bees are all back and buzzing around the field because Bell's out there, I'll be happy. Don't get me wrong. I will be happy. And I'll support the guy because he's wearing a black and gold uniform. I mean, I want to wait and see. I'll see it when I believe it. I believe that he has to come back before week 10 because he doesn't want to be put in some other odd position when 2019 rolls around with free agency. Already something that's been floated around on this show, and not my original idea. It was Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller on Sirius XM NFL Radio. Talk about transition tag. The Steelers still hold the keys to the car. If he doesn't get that accrued season as a veteran, this can is going to get kicked down the road a little bit more. I don't know. Bell thinks he's going to get paid more as an older running back as well, a year older, after serious injuries and some off-the-field problems that these guys like Todd Gurley and David Johnson haven't had. David Johnson did have the knee last year, though. So Bell comes back, and he's effective. You screwed the team over for 6 games because they could have used that, presumably, if you're playing up to that same level. Let's say he comes back week 8 and he sucks. And he's getting, 2 and 3 yards per carry, doesn't catch a pass that's thrown his way. Maybe it's a 3rd down and they don't convert and the Steelers lose a game. He's not going to look like the savior of the season. And in fact, people may start questioning, depending on what happens these next 2 games with James Conner in there, why are we taking James Conner off the field? This guy has been pretty steady when you actually do something with him offensively, because that seems to be the trend with the running backs. Again, D'Angelo, Conner, Bell, Todman, Fitz-Toussaint. You give them the rock, and it seems like the Steelers are a much better football team when their running backs get touches. And it doesn't all have to be just rushing attempts. Put them as part of the passing game. We've seen Conner, I already said that. 5'5", 3-4, 20-some catches already this season. He's capable. But if Bell comes in there and takes touches away from James Conner, and then the Steelers sputter, barely win, lose, look ugly, you're not going to be able to say this guy's the savior, period. So either way, you better hope he doesn't have the rust of the 2017 season, because he hasn't had a training camp and he hasn't had this part of the Bill Belichick thing I say, September extension of the preseason. He's had neither. So does he need October to be his extension of the preseason? And how will that affect the Steelers' offense if he does? Like I said, you could flip the coin. You could say it either way. I'm just tired of hearing about the Steelers needing to have their season saved by Le'Veon Bell. I am of the Mike Tomlin mindset of let's focus on the guys who are here. That's what I'm doing. I look forward to the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to look forward to see what else happens, because now that he's made this announcement, this is going to be the circus distraction for all of October. It's fitting. It's fitting because it's going to be it's Halloween time. And Bell, if he returns, what is that on the schedule? I believe that's the October 28th game against the Cleveland Browns. Computers and stuff, they don't want to work. Here we go. Yeah, week 9. That's not what I hit. It is October 28th. I was correct. That's my birthday, by the way. That's how I knew that. Cleveland Browns. Wife's a Browns fan. I'm the Steelers fan. We're going together. They're going to wear those fancy throwbacks. It'll be the first uniform that presumably Le'Veon Bell puts on all season. They better announce the defense. Because if they announce the offense and bring him out, they might not even have him as a starter, but I wouldn't feed his ego and do that. Plus, I have a feeling the Boo Birds, it's not going to be the friendliest atmosphere when this guy goes out and carries the ball for no gain on the first or second or third attempt. If he isn't dynamite immediately and it's slow, we saw what the Steelers and Browns just did already. Week 1. Here we are, Week 8. It worries me, folks. I don't want to say he's the savior of the season. I think he could help the Steelers. Most definitely a talented player. But one player does not make a team. There's 11 guys each side of the ball, plus all the guys that rotate in and out. You got injuries, you got everything else. This is the standard, and I want to see the standard. Until I see the standard, it's very tough for me to say that. Until next time, thanks for listening. I'm off my soapbox. That's all I got to say about that. That's a Forrest Gump quote, I do believe. And that's all he said about that. That's all Joe said about that. My name is Joe Kuzma. This is the Steel City Underground podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. YouTube's getting up there. We definitely appreciate it, everyone from our end. Until next time, be safe, be good. I'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.